Hello everybody, Ben Woodruff here, and in today's video I'm really excited to talk about all the Harpy Eagles. Now there's three of them. The first is the true Harp Eagle, the Harp Eagle, which is the most powerful species of eagle in the world. The second is the Guiana crested eagle, which lives basically in the same areas. And the third is the Papuan eagle, which gets very rarely talked about. Now, I actually made 3 separate videos covering each of these species. I'll put links to those separate videos in the description down below if you want to just look at those. But I decided, you know what, it would be kind of nice to compile them together and talk about what these birds have in common. So this video is a compilation from these 3 separate videos that you can also find on my channel. So there might be a little bit of crossover, there might be a little bit of repeating of things here and there. But I think that's okay. I think it's fun to just have these all compiled in one place. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you like the video, if you could hit subscribe, it really helps me keep this channel up and going. But here we go. We're going to take a learn about 3 species of Harp Eagles in the world. The Guiana crested eagle is a hard one. It's a unique species with very little information out there about it. It lives throughout Central and South America, and it's kind of widely distributed. It's not particularly common, but it's listed as not threatened, so that's the good news. But that being said, there are not very many of them out there that we can tell. But they're so secretive that a lot of people say it's just that people do not see them. Now this species, it is an eagle, but it's very narrow. It's incredibly long-legged and incredibly narrow and slender. The wingspan is about 5 feet 9 inches, which isn't that big. But you got to remember, this is a forest bird, and forest hunters usually have a very long tail and very narrow wings that allows them to dive in and out and be able to pull their wings in and not have problems with that. But that being said, it doesn't weigh very much. It only weighs 2.8 pounds to 6.6 pounds, which 6.6 is the upper end. That's kind of above average for this species. And that's getting into the size of like a male golden eagle, but it's still quite small for still being an eagle. Now the interesting thing about this, you may have noticed looking at the pictures, it looks very similar to a Harp Eagle, and genetics have shown that it is very closely related to a Harp Eagle. They form part of a sister clade. So there's kind of 3 Harpies. There's the true Harp Eagle, which is enormous. It's the gigantic bird. The largest one in captivity was 27 pounds. Enormous and by far the most powerful eagle on the planet. Then there's the Guiana crested eagle, which we're talking about, which is all in Central and South America. And then there's the Papuan eagle, which used to be called the New Guinea Harp Eagle, and then was thought to be, no, it's not closely related to harpies. And then they did DNA tests, and it turns out it is. So these 3, Papua and New Guinea is the other side of the world from true Harp Eagles and Guiana crested eagles. But they are very closely related. But the Harpy is the enormous one. The Guiana crested is not all that big. It's still a very big, very incredibly powerful bird, but it's just not nearly as big as a Harp Eagle. So this bird, the very interesting thing about them is their color morphs. So first of all, they start off with their juvenile colors. Their juvenile colors are kind of pale white and very closely mimic the coloration of a Harp Eagle. Now we see this throughout the New World. Throughout the tropical New World, there are many species of raptors where their first year of life, they basically look like a Harp Eagle, a juvenile Harp Eagle. So in other words, a juvenile Guiana crested eagle looks almost identical to a juvenile Harp Eagle. Now it takes, 5-6 years of different molts until they get their adult colors. The assumption is that by mimicking the coloration of an adult, the thought is like by looking like the juvenile of a much larger species, that it does 2 things. And number 1, you might think, oh, that could be a Guiana crested eagle. Oh wait, it might be a Harp Eagle, I'm going to leave it alone. But it also might engender the wrath of a potential parent. So in other words, if you're a juvenile Guiana crested eagle and another predator sees you and thinks, oh, that's a juvenile Harp Eagle, there might be an adult Harp Eagle nearby that might defend and attack me, so I better not mess with that juvenile. That's the thought. There's very extreme examples of this. For example, the ornate hawk eagle. It is a juvenile, very much does look like a harp eagle. And then as an adult, it's a totally different bird. It's all colorful and bright and entirely different. So we see this common, and the Guiana crested eagle is no different. But what's really strange is the Guiana crested eagles have different color morphs as adults. This is very unusual. Most eagles and most tropical eagles, they'll just have a basic color morph. And within that, you might have one that's a little lighter and a little darker. But Guiana crested eagles have very distinct color morphs. They have a light color morph that even has a little bit of red on the chest. It's very pale and very red. And then there's a dark or melanistic morph. It's kind of cool to know that there are these two very distinct color morphs. Now, the Guiana crested eagle, I call it the Guiana crested eagle, and that's what most people call it, but online you're seeing a lot of people calling it the crested eagle. But there's a lot of birds that are called the crested eagle. For example, the African crested eagle, which I'll do a video on soon, is a really cool species with an enormous crest. There's a lot of birds that have in their common name crested is part of their name. So Guiana crested eagle is a little more specific, and that way we know what we're talking about. This species lives in elevation from about 3,000 feet above sea level to about 5,000 feet above sea level, and really it hunts everything. It really hunts the same things that harp eagles hunt. It hunts a wide range of birds and a wide range of mammals. It's more of a still hunter. It likes to just sit there and wait for something to come along and then chase after it. But it has been known to pursue a wide range of birds and parrots, which is pretty cool. It's a very powerful eagle with a strong grip, but again, it kind of looks like a discount harp eagle. Harp eagles just beefy and big old legs and broad shoulders and broad leg stands. And the Guiana crested eagle, which is, you know, a type of harpy, is like really narrow and very long-legged. Harp eagles do have long legs, but Guiana crested eagles seem to have disproportionately long legs, as do the Papuan eagles that I mentioned earlier as well, that are the other of the three harpies. So really cool species and very hard to find pictures of and incredibly hard to find information on. The interesting thing about these, in the 1970s, they were apparently fairly easy to acquire. There's a lot of wildlife trainers in the United States who had them. So if you watch videos, so it used to be the laws were so loose or almost non-existent, and if you were a person with a rough permit, you could just get some really cool exotic animals. And all the kind of like wildlife documentaries we grew up with were usually trained animals that were used, and they would just piece video clips together of these trained animals and then make it into a story. I was watching a really funny show the other day. It wasn't meant to be funny. I think it was called Cry Wilderness, and it was kind of like this Bigfoot show. But in it, then there's this scene where there's like this Native American shaman in the forest, and he's surrounded by all these animals. So there's raccoons and cougars and bears and wolves, but there's also a bald eagle, which was actually an African fish eagle, which looks kind of similar to a bald eagle, but totally different. And there was a Guiana crested eagle as well, which is like, that's from Central America and South America, not something you'd have in the Pacific Northwest. But I've talked to a lot of wildlife educators, and apparently in the 1970s, a lot of people had access to these, trained with them, worked with them, found them to be fascinating and really fun birds. But again, you don't have that case anymore. I don't know of any of them in the United States, but really an incredible species, and one that I just thought would be important to share. One very strange thing about this species that has been documented is there have been instances where a harp eagle has had a nest, and with harp eagles, when the babies start to get older, the parents might go out for a day or two and hunt, and the baby's just alone in the nest. There's been instances where Guiana crested eagles have brought food to and fed the baby harp eagles, and even brought clumps of nest, like nesting material, to add to the nest. This is very strange. Now, again, a baby harp eagle looks very similar to a baby Guiana crested eagle. So maybe there's some sort of maternal instinct that just clicked in and it was like, oh, there's a baby that needs to be fed. I need to go feed it. Maybe it's something like that. We don't know. That has been very well documented, but not very well understood. So again, really kind of a fascinating species with a lot of secrets still yet to be revealed about this species. But I love the Guiana crested eagle, and it would be really cool to work with one. But again, a lot smaller than you would expect, but still a big, beautiful, powerful species of eagle. The Papuan eagle is a very unique and strange species, and it's a species that is painfully difficult to find any information about and any photos about, which is why I'm making this video. I would like this video to be available to people so at least people are aware of the species, because people don't know about it. So the Papuan eagle, I grew up in the books that I read, which were written even before my time. This bird was called the New Guinea Harp Eagle. And so there was a Harp Eagle in my books, but then there was also a New Guinea Harp Eagle on the other side of the world. And I was kind of confused by that. Well, later on people said, oh, you know, it's not really a Harp Eagle. The Harp Eagle is in Mexico, Central America, South America. The Papuan Eagle, the New Guinea Harp Eagle is not really a Harp Eagle. Well, then they did DNA tests, and it turns out it is. So there's a clade with 3 eagles that kind of form this sister lineage together, which is the true Harp Eagle, which is the most powerful eagle on the planet with incredible grip force in their feet. And then the Guiana crested eagle, which has basically the same range as a Harpy, but it is much smaller and much narrower, but kind of some crossover there. And the Papuan eagle of Papua New Guinea. The Papuan eagle is unique. It's very strange. Most eagles of the world have a situation where they have a lot of different color morphs, where they hatch, and within 6 months they're full size, because it takes longer for an eagle, baby eagle to grow. 6 months they're full size, and then their first year they have a color phase. Then they molt at 1 year, and they get a new color phase and a new color phase. They have 5 or 6 different distinct color phases until they reach their adult coloration. Now, we don't know why this is, but kind of the belief is that's a way to advertise to a mate, hey, I have adult coloration. That means I've survived this long. That means I'm a good choice for a mate. I know how to survive. I know how to hunt. I've got good genetics. We think it's something like that. We're not sure about that, but that's how it seems. Papuan eagles are not like that. They're very subtle. Now, for most people, especially if you're looking through binoculars in the rainforests of Papua, you're probably going to not be able to tell the difference between an adult and a juvenile. It is so hard to find any photos of these birds online, and what I could find, I can't tell a difference. You know, I looked up, there is some slight differences with the barring between adults and juveniles, and there wasn't enough that I could show this is a juvenile, this is an adult. Don't know why that is, but again, one of the things we also think in the tropics, so many birds of prey, the juveniles look like a juvenile harp eagle. So juvenile harp eagles are very white, and there's tons of other birds of prey. For example, ornate hawk eagles. Ornate hawk eagles, very colorful, vibrant birds, but their first year of life, they almost look identical to a juvenile harp eagle. So we think that the reasoning in this, and again, genetics just does its thing. It just kind of falls into place. It's not like it's all figured out. But we think that the advantage of this is twofold. Number one, if you're a baby, but you look like the baby of a bigger species in your coloration, then a predator that might want to hunt you will be like, oh, that's a bigger species that I want to mess with. Also, if you look like a baby of a bigger species, then another predator might see you and be like, oh, that's under the protection of an adult that might be around here. I don't want to mess with that bigger adult. Well, those selective pressures are not in place in Papua. The range of raptors there is far more limited, and there's not a lot of direct competition with the Papuan eagles. Kind of top dog in its area. And so the juveniles and the adults basically look the same. There isn't a huge differentiation. These birds are listed as vulnerable. There's not very many of them. They have a 5-foot wingspan, which is not huge, and their weight isn't that big either. They weigh 3.5 to 5.3 pounds, you know, with, of course, the males being smaller than the females. It's common with all birds of prey. Now, that is not a large wingspan. It may seem big, but if you're working with eagles, it's not big. However, that is this is a forest dweller, and we know the basic body design of forest-dwelling raptors is to have short, rounded wings and a very long tail. Short, rounded wings, you flap fast, and you can dive in and pull without hitting your wing feathers and breaking them, but a longer tail helps you to be more agile. So that works for them. Their skeletal structure, remember, don't trust feathers. Feathers lie. Feathers will, if you have a bird that looks like it has a big old poofy head, it's not the case. It's just feathers. You know, you look at the jawline. I always have to tell that with people with bald eagles. People think bald eagles have enormous heads, but they don't. Do I have a skull handy? There we go. Here's a skull of a bald eagle. Not very big, right? Because in truth, the actual skull, the actual head looks much larger because the feathers on the head and also the neck are all white. So people wrongly assume, oh, that's all the head. No, it's not the case. So don't trust feathers. Trust the skeleton. The skeleton will tell you the true essence of the animal. And the essence of this animal, the closest comparison is a much better known species in the New World is the great black hawk. The great black hawk has a very similar skeletal structure. It has very long, lurpy legs. Now they are different because a great black hawk has very broad wings and it normally hunts fish. But other than that, the skeleton underneath is very similar, almost identical. Having long legs, what advantage does that have for you? We don't know, but if you're trying to reach in and grab things through the trees, maybe that gives you that last little bit of effort. But this is an enigmatic species. Has a very unique call. Listen to the call here. And the call is, again, a little strange. Not quite like any other eagle I've ever heard of. And this species, it's not very large. And again, if you're looking at this bird, you might think, oh, it's a big bird. But again, you compare this to a stinking Harp Eagle, a true Harp Eagle, they're tiny. Harp Eagle is big, female Harp Eagle is the biggest recorded weight of a female Harp Eagle in captivity, to be fair, so it's probably fatter than normal, 27 pounds. And these guys don't top any more than 5.3 pounds. So again, that's even smaller than a male golden eagle. And yet, these guys hunt some incredibly large and dangerous prey. So the food, one of the things they hunt regularly are tree kangaroos, which that's nuts. Tree kangaroos are really cool, interesting taxon where they're kangaroos that went from the ground to the trees. So they hop up into the trees and they're starting to develop having gripping hands again. They hunt ring-tailed possums, which are another. Again, these are animals that are powerful and can hang on really well to these branches. They hunt giant naked-tailed rats, which is a big, powerful species. They hunt a wide range of marsupials, a lot of different marsupials. They hunt a lot of tropical pigeons and doves, which shows that they have a lot of speed and agility. They hunt hornbills, and I love hornbills. I've raised many species of hornbills, and hornbills can bite hard. They have and they can peck and kill with their beak and bite and crunch. They break up. Hornbills will hunt things like snakes and lizards and rodents, and they just break the skeleton with their beak and then flip it upside down, break it more, tenderize it, and swallow it whole. So hornbills, that's a formidable prey to be going after. They hunt cockatoos, which, again, cockatoos, I've raised many cockatoos, and if you ever get bit by a cockatoo, they darn near take off your finger. So again, that's a dangerous prey item to go after. They will hunt juvenile cassowaries. Cassowaries are among the ratites like ostriches, emus, rheas, kiwis, cassowaries. Cassowaries are known to be the most aggressive. Cassowaries have on their feet, their inner toe, the claw is long and straight, and they'll kick and stab you with it. They're highly aggressive. They love to attack people. They're vegetarians, but they're a very aggressive species. So going after a juvenile cassowary when an adult could come and kick you, that's gutsy. They hunt a wide range of snakes, and they'll hunt a lot of monitor lizards that, when again, monitors are predatory and big hunters. and they hunt dogs and pigs, domestic dogs and domestic pigs. So this is a comparatively small eagle that's ridiculously gutsy, and very few people have worked with them in any capacity, and very few people have seen them. Papua is so remote and hard to access and hard to get into the backcountry. There's so much kind of undiscovered country in there. Not a lot of people, not even birders and biologists, have seen these, and that's why I had to fight tooth and claw to even find any pictures of these to put on here. But I want people to know about the species. So again, the Papuan eagle, very unique, very unusual, but it's a branch off of the harpies. So again, you have the true harp eagle, you have the Guiana crested eagle, and then branching off a little further over here, you have this one, the Papuan eagle, which used to be called the New Guinea harp eagle. Really quite a remarkable species.
Today's video I'm really excited about. I've waited a long time to do this video because I wanted to do it right. Today's video is on the largest eagle, most powerful eagle, and arguably the most iconic eagle species in the world, and that is the Harpy eagle. Now, if we're being really accurate, the Harp Eagle isn't an eagle. If you watch my videos, true eagles are members of the Aquila family line. I will put a link down to a video I did in the description covering all the true Aquila eagles. But if we're going to use the term eagle loosely, then the Harp Eagle is the most eagle of all eagles. This is epic. It is otherworldly. It's like something out of a video game or something out of some epic tale of fantasy. They're so large, they're so strange, they're so unique. So let's get into this animal. Before we do though, if you haven't already, if you could subscribe to my channel, very much appreciate it. It helps me keep this up and going. So the Harpy eagle, it lives in Mexico, Central America, and South America, which is quite a broad range. Lives in a range of habitats within that range. It is among the heaviest of eagles, arguably the heaviest eagle. Now the contenders for this statement of being the heaviest eagle are, of course, the Harp eagle. The other is the Philippine eagle, which we'll talk a little bit about in a minute, and the Steller's sea eagle. None of these are closely related, but these are generally considered to be the heaviest of eagles. Now, heaviest is tricky because when eagles are this big, they can eat pounds in a sitting. Pounds. If you're eating that much and cropping, part of it goes to the stomach and part of it's in your crop, and then who's weighing you? Some biologist in the field? Or what about maybe it's a bird in captivity, like a captive bred bird. It's being weighed and maybe it's overweight. It's tricky to know the exact weights on these birds, but generally the Harp eagle, the Philippine eagle, and the Steller's sea eagle are considered to be the three heaviest of eagles. But there's no contest. Structurally speaking, the Harpy eagle is the largest eagle. Meaning if you're looking at the skeleton, if you're looking at the skeletons of all these eagles, thousands of years from now, and you're like, well, oh yeah, Harp eagle is by far structurally the biggest. That doesn't count for feathers, and we'll get to that in a bit. But weight-wise, this eagle often weighs 20 pounds. There is on record a female that was in captivity that weighed 27 pounds. That is an insane weight for a bird of prey. Now, I've flown golden eagles before. I've flown very large female golden eagles. My smallest male golden eagle flew at 6 pounds. And he accidentally caught coyotes on 3 different occasions. A 6-pound eagle. So imagine what a 27-pound eagle can do. Powerful. Now, the wingspan of this eagle is 7 feet 3 inches. Seems pretty big. It is. But you have to understand, these birds, for their size, have incredibly small wings, meaning the feathers themselves are comparatively short. Structurally, the wing bones, which are, arms being repurposed as wings, they are huge, but they have wings that are built for a dense rainforest environment. So wings are short and broad. This would be very similar to a goshawk. You think about northern goshawks. Goshawks are built for a forest life. So a goshawk is a big bird, but for its size, it has an oversized, very long tail, and its wings are very short, broad, and rounded. So what this does, long wings are really good for soaring and gliding around, doing your thing. Short wings, you have to flap more to stay afloat, but to stay aloft, but you can zip in and out and dodge branches. That's what goshawks do. It's the same thing. If you want to think of it in that way, you could think of a harp eagle as a big scaled up goshawk. With that being said, 7 feet 3 inches is still a very large wingspan. So you're having a bird with undersized wings, and it's still 7 feet 3 inches. It's incredible. These birds are huge. The Harpy eagles were first classified in 1758. They were named and got that name Harpies after the Harpies of Greek lore and Greek mythology. If you're not familiar with Greek mythology, my first introduction to the concept of harpies was the old classic movie from back in the day, Jason and the Argonauts. And Jason and the Argonauts featured some incredible stop-go animation by Ray Harryhausen. It had these harpies that came in and were harassing a man at the behest of Zeus the god. And I remember seeing these things flying out of the sky and attacking this blind man. And I remember thinking, wow, this is horrific and terrifying and exciting. And wow, these just monstrous things. Well, that's where the idea of harpies came from. People who were first learning of harpy eagles from the native peoples in the land were told accounts that they were said to hunt children. That harpy eagles would dive down and would catch children and would eat them, carry them away and eat them. And again, to the scientists who were hearing of this, that sounded very similar to of the Greek mythology of harpies carrying away people or attacking people from above. Now, we'll get into that in a bit on whether or not they really do attack people. We'll get into that in a bit. But what is a true harpy eagle? I grew up with books. The internet didn't exist. And going through books, common names change frequently as we get new information. And sometimes things are given different names. So the true harpy eagle, the actual harpy eagle, is the biggest. That is what we're talking about. But there's a couple other close cousins. So one is sometimes people call it the crested eagle, but I don't like that because there's other crested eagles and crested hawk eagles. So the Guiana crested eagle of Central America and North and South America is a very close cousin to a harp eagle. And it used to be called a Guiana harpy eagle. There was the harp eagle and there was a Guiana harpy eagle. And that's how it was viewed. Well, genetics have proven that they are very closely related. I will be doing a video soon on Guiana crested eagles. They're a very strange species because they have different color morphs, which you do not normally have in this family line. They have different, very strange color morphs. They're really cool. They're big, but they're not harp eagle big. So again, the Guiana crested eagle used to be called the Guiana harp eagle. Now it's just called the Guiana crested eagle or even the crested eagle. But again, crested eagle kind of gives people a little off course. So it's in the harpy family, but it's not a true harp eagle. Only a harpy is. Now there's also the New Guinea eagle. Now it's nowadays normally called the Papuan eagle. Lives in Papua New Guinea. And this was originally, because of its shape and its appearance, believed to be a harp eagle. And it used to be called the New Guinea harp eagle. So there was the harp eagle, the Guyana harp eagle, and the New Guinea harp eagle. These were all called harpies. Well, then they said, well, actually, the Papuan eagle that we have today, it's not related. Well, actually, genetics have proven that yes, they are related to the other two. So you have the real harpy eagle, then you have the Guiana crested eagle, very closely related, and then the Papuan eagle on the other side of the world is closely related, but it branched off earlier. But it is a very close cousin. So those are kind of the harpies, if you will. Then there's the Philippine eagle. The Philippine eagle is weird. It is unique. And again, this is another one of these birds that just seems prehistoric. It seems to be from a mythical fairy realm. Philippine eagles used to be considered to be related to harp eagles, just because of the size, shape of the beak, and sometimes they used to be called, they're Philippine eagles is what they call them today. They used to call them Philippine monkey-eating eagles. They also used to call them Philippine harpy eagles, and they were just a type of harpy. But they're not. Genetics don't lie, and genetics have actually shown that they are related to the serpent eagles, which is really strange. They would have branched off way early on and started doing their own thing, but you can see it in the patterning, the shape, and the crest. You're like, okay, I can see how you went this way, but you took it a really cool, weird direction. So a Philippine eagle is not a harpy. It's almost as big as a harpy, but it's not a true harp eagle. Real harp eagles, they prefer dense tropical lowland rainforests, from around 3,000 feet above sea level to up to 6,500 feet. They have the largest feet, talons, and tarsi of any raptor by a long shot. The thickness, the density of the tarsi, and the size of the feet is otherworldly. A lot of times people will take pictures with a harp eagle, and they'll have the harpy in front, and they'll be 5-6 feet fat and take a picture. Harp eagles are huge, but these pictures make them look much bigger. But if you look at the actual foot in hand of a harp eagle, it's unreal. Why do they need to be that much oversized? When we're getting into their prey list, well, I'll talk about why I think it is. But normally most of their prey, things like monkeys and things like that, parrots, it's like you don't need to have feet this big to take out prey like that. I'll get into a minute on why I think this is. But there's nothing to compare them to. There's nothing anywhere near this size and this power and this grip strength and the size of these tarsi. They're just massive. Harp eagles normally hunt from a perch. They like to just sit in a perch and just look around and wait for things to come. But it has been documented that they will dash beneath canopies to flush prey. So if they've been looking for hours and they're not finding anything, that if here's the canopy line, the tree line, they'll just come in and dash through and dash through and dash through, hoping that them passing will spook something and then they can turn around and grab it. It's an effective way. I can't imagine living and hunting in a rainforest, because on the one hand, hyper productive, there's food everywhere, but on the other hand, everything is so hidden. How do you ever find anything? Harp eagles do it well. Harp eagles, their largest food source is tree sloths, which is kind of strange. Most people don't think much about sloths. Sloths are a prehistoric throwback. We used to have giant ground sloths, and at the same time we also had tree sloths. Giant ground sloths are gone, but the tree sloths remain. But they're a very prehistoric lineage. They come from the lineage called Xenartha, spelled with an X. And Xenartha contains all your sloths, all your armadillos, your extinct glyptodonts, which are kind of like an armadillo the size of a car, and all your true anteaters. Not an aardvark. Aardvarks eat ants, but they're a different family. So those are Xenartha. And that's mostly what they kill is sloths. Now, there was a nest monitored in Brazil from 2003 to 2005. And at this nest, there were 116 different prey species that were documented. Different species that the parents killed and brought back to the nest. Of those, 79% by the numbers were sloths. 79%. So 79% of everything brought back to the nest was sloths. That kind of blows me away because I've never seen a sloth in the wild. I assumed that they were not very prolific. They're slow. They don't breed very frequently. So the fact their numbers are that big that they could be hunted that prolifically is pretty wild. So they hunt mostly at that particular nest. Of those 79% kill that were sloths, they're mostly brown-throated sloths and Linnaeus two-toed sloths, which are two different sloth lineages. Monkeys form a large part of the diet, a very large portion. And at a nest monitored in Guiana, monkeys represented 37% of what was brought back to the nest. Now, I wanted to show pictures and list them all. Here's my list. So I'm going to put that up on here. These are the list of monkeys that are eaten. It is a long, broad list of monkey species that were documented at this nest site. And again, I have a hard time envisioning an environment that has monkeys at all. Just because I live in Utah, I live in North America. We get monkeys when you get down into Mexico and stuff, but we don't have them at all or anything like that. And there's some countries where, maybe like if you're in parts of Asia, macaques. You might have those just like kind of run around or something. Just certain animals that are, certain monkeys that are fairly accessible to humans, kind of like squirrels in North America. But the fact that there's that many species of monkeys all roaming around and all accessible for food, it's a wild environment. So monkeys are very important, is part of the diet. But harp eagles are the top of the food chain. And they'll hunt a wide range of other things. So among other things, they hunt 9-banded armadillos. They hunt kinkajous, which are a member of the cyanid family, so that's related to raccoons. They'll hunt crab-eating foxes. They will hunt peccaries, which are kind of like pigs. That's kind of a weird one too, because peccaries and javelinas, people are like, oh, they're not actually pigs, they're a different line. But they're still off of that same branch, so I still consider them pigs. They'll hunt white-tailed deer. Now, if you're in North America, that's the same kind of white-tailed deer we have in the eastern United States. People don't realize they go all the way down into South America and in the rainforests. And harp eagles hunt them. Can you imagine an eagle killing a deer in the forest? It's wild. They hunt squirrels. There's a lot of tropical squirrels, big old giant red squirrels. They hunt possums, which there is a wide range of possums in the rainforests of South America. They hunt a large number of rats. There's some really big, like cane rats and weird things like that. And domestic animals, they'll hunt goats and also sheep. That doesn't bode well for them, because if they are doing that, then a lot of times the people raising those goats or sheep take it out on the harp eagle and illegally kill them. Now, in the bird and reptile range, harp eagles regularly hunt macaws. Now, I have raised a number of macaws. Macaws can darn near bite your finger off. They have these incredibly powerful beaks, and the jawline goes way far back. When you see where the beak is, the actual jaw goes clear to the back of the skull. And they can crack open nuts and just tear things apart. They bite so hard. So for a harp eagle to catch one of these, they have to dispatch them quick, or else that could inflict serious damage. But they regularly hunt macaws. Seems like a strange thing to eat for dinner, but it's what they do. They hunt siriemas. Now, siriemas are predatory birds. They are the last living terror birds. We used to have terror birds going back even before the beginning of the Ice Age. Terror birds are these giant, usually flightless birds that would hunt from the ground. They'd run along and they'd kill things with their legs. Some of them were like 8 feet tall. And all the bigger ones died off, and they went down. Now we have 2 of them left. We have 2 types of siriemas left, and they can fly. The ones we have left still can fly. But they're predatory birds. They're hunters. They're pretty high up on the food chain. Harp eagles hunt them. They don't care. They hunt curassos, which are kind of a pheasant-like bird, kind of like a cross between a peacock and a pheasant. They hunt a wide range of snakes, and there are many snakes in the tropics. They will hunt full-sized iguanas. The iguana is a lizard, and they're herbivores, but they're big, and they can whip with their tail. They have a very powerful tail, and they can bite hard. I've been bitten by a full-size iguana that was getting it out or thing and bit me. So they can bite hard. And they're very heavy and very dense, and they have deep, dense scales. That's tough to pierce through, but harp eagles hunt them. They will also hunt yellow-footed tortoises. So, again, if you're willing to go after a tortoise, that's pretty wild if you're going to eat and try to break through a tortoise shell. But harp eagles are that powerful, both with their feet and with their bite force. When it comes to nesting, it's kind of strange. Normally, top predators need a broad range. So if we're going down things like, if you're talking an American kestrel needs a range this big, and maybe a red-tailed hawk needs a range this big, and maybe a prairie falcon needs it this big, and maybe a golden eagle needs it this big. Usually the larger a predator is, the more range it needs. But we find that across the board, regardless of size, if there is enough food, birds of prey, raptors, will nest with incredible density. I remember looking for goshawk nests up in the high Uinta Mountains one year, and every half a mile there was a red-tailed hawk nest because there was an explosion of Uinta ground squirrels. They were just everywhere. And so the red-tails were like, yeah, we can nest right by each other. It doesn't matter. There's enough food to feed everybody. So you can have high density. In a hyper-productive environment, you can have this high density. That is what happens with harp eagles. It's been documented that active nests can sometimes be as close as 1.9 miles from each other. That's nothing. That's incredible. But again, it's all about the food source. The harder it is to find and acquire food, the more range you need to have and defend and protect. And the more food there is, the closer you can be. Now, usually harp eagles build their nest in a kapok tree, which is typically the tallest tree in South America. Makes sense, right? Biggest eagle in the world, tallest tree in the rainforest, kind of, again, sort of like a fairy world. Like, ooh, yeah, the magical harp eagle living in the tallest tree in the rainforest. Of course it does. But hey, if it's, you got to have a good sight to be able to see, look for any other potential danger. No displays, like no mating displays or courtship displays have been observed. We presume they mate for life. Rainforests are so dense, normally it's doing good for biologists to even find the nests and to be able to monitor them, you know, maybe with a blind from across the way. But usually courtship has not been documented in any way, shape, or form. They lay 2 eggs, but they only raise 1. And the egg is, well, they raise 1 chick every 2 to 3 years. So you raise a chick, 2 to 3 years later, you raise another one. That's a big range of time in between. You might wonder, why is that? Well, I'll get to that in a second. The eggs are incubated for 56 days, which is almost 2 months. That's a long time to incubate. That's a very astronomically large incubation period for a raptor. When the chick hatches, it's flimsy and needs help from mom and dad to be fed. But when it's about 36 days old, so a little over a month, then it can stand awkwardly on its own. So again, this is a pretty slow growing species. It doesn't grow very fast. What you're building structure, you don't think about it, birds grow so quickly. You know, your mammals grow for years, they keep growing, and then they start growing fat. Birds, they grow fast. And not only are harp eagles big, but their bone density is massive, especially on their legs. And to grow that type of bone, that takes time. That takes a lot of time. So they fledge at about 6 months old. That's a long time. And the parents are committed even longer. So the parents continue after that. Babies fledge 6 months after hatching. They fledge half a year. The parents continue to feed that young for another 6 to 10 months. That's insane. So from hatching to baby going out on its own, that's an 18-month commitment. That's enormous. So it takes a lot to grow a baby harp eagle into an adult, into a hunting, self-sustaining adult. It takes a lot of work, a lot of growth, and a lot of effort to get to that point. But you got to think about that. It takes a lot of time to do that. That's why they don't have a chick very often. Because if it's going to take from hatching to 18 months, okay, yeah, but what are you doing? You are growing your future replacement. So a population must stay in balance. If you have more babies than can be sustained. So think about it. If you had tons of babies and there wasn't enough food, some of those babies are going to die of starvation. There's going to be competition that goes down. And then the prey numbers go back up. And then the predator numbers go back up too high. And then prey goes down and predator goes down. So this is the dancing game. So eventually it'll even out in a set environment to where you have balance. So if harp eagles are nesting more frequently, then the environment can be sustained. Those babies are going to die. And so what it ends up balancing out to is if you have one chick every 2 to 3 years, and if you take 18 months to raise them, that balances out to where your parents are going to live a number of years and eventually they're going to die. And while they are living, you come into existence. There's crossover. And then eventually they die and you're in that territory. So there's crossover. So it's normally true. The larger the raptor, the longer time that takes. But I think that's incredible that it takes that long to raise their young. Birds grow feathers every year. Most birds grow a new set of feathers every year. It's called molting. And for smaller birds, let's take a red-tailed hawk, for example. Red-tailed hawks, they hatch, and within a few months, they are full size and on their own. And they have kind of some dull cream and brown colors. They go through 1 year of life, and at 1 year, their next summer, they grow a new set of feathers, and the new set of feathers are their adult colors, okay? So baby colors for 1 year, and then adult colors. And then the next year goes by, and they do the same thing, but they're going to get a new set of the same adult colors. And they'll keep doing that every year. Larger birds, like a bald eagle is a prime example. Bald eagles start off kind of blackish brown, and over 5 or 6 years, they have 5 or 6 different color morphs they go through until finally an adult, they have the white head, white neck, and white tail. Which, by the way, always bugs me. Everybody thinks that bald eagles have this huge white head because they poof everything out. They don't. They have a normal size head for an eagle their size, but they poof it out and they have this white neck that everybody thinks is part of the head. It's not. The head of a bald eagle is like, it's like that. It's not that big from above. It's not huge. Anyways, I'm getting off course. That's what I do. So bigger birds take a longer time. It takes 5 or 6 years to get adult colors. Some of them, like I did a video recently on bachelor eagles, it takes like 7 or 8 years, which is unheard of. And there is some birds that are in between that are kind of related to eagles, like black hawks. Black hawks take 3 years. They'll have their baby colors, and then they'll have some intermediate colors for their second year, and then their third year, they get adult colors. So you have birds like that too. But harp eagles, how do they start off? Harp eagles start off pale and white. They're kind of light gray to white for their first year of life. And it's going to take them years to get those adult colors. Now, there's many smaller eagles and hawk eagles that mimic this coloration. So, for example, the Isidore's eagle, its juvenile colors are the same as a harp eagle. The black hawk eagle, which ends up growing into these beautiful black colors, their young colors of their young offspring are that kind of same, that white and cream. The ornate hawk eagle, good heavens, that bird is an adult. It's got bright colors coming out everywhere. But as first year bird, it has those same pale white colors that look very much like a juvenile harp eagle. And of course, the Guiana crested eagle, which is closely related to the harp eagle, its first year colors, the same thing. It's got those pale colors. We don't know why that is, but the assumption that we infer is that these smaller harp eagles top of the food chain. Well, when you're young, it's kind of hard. You might get picked on. You have to do some battles over territory. And if you look like something bigger and more dangerous than you actually are as a species, maybe that gives you an edge. So in other words, maybe you're something like you're a black hawk eagle, but you're a first year bird, so you're pale and white, and a bird sees you like, oh no, that's a juvenile harp eagle. I'm not going to mess with them. Could be something entirely different. But that's kind of what most of us assume and sort of infer about it. So over several years, they get their adult colors. And it takes them a number of years to do it. And as their adult colors, they have this beautiful crest that will stick out in wild directions, and this beautiful barring on the tails and the wings. And these enormous legs. They're such a striking, beautiful, powerful bird. They are protected legally, I think, in every country that has them. I think they are legally protected, but they are still hunted and persecuted. People still do sadly kill them illegally, which is not good, and we should encourage people to do otherwise. Fortunately, there have been efforts to do ecotourism, to say, hey, let's preserve these lands, let's keep this forest intact, let's not hunt the harp eagles, and let's take bird watchers. They'll pay big money to come down and from a distance through their binoculars see harp eagles in the wild near their nest, and that has helped some. Habitat loss also still is one of the biggest threats to harp eagles and their ability to sustain themselves. So good to preserve the wild forest that we have. Harp eagles are incredible. I've never flown one. I've held them a few times up at the Peregrine Fund. I've had a chance to work with them a little bit, and incredibly powerful. There's nothing quite like it. They're so much heavier and their legs are so much more powerful than any other eagle that it's very intimidating. Even for some, I've worked with a lot of eagles. I've worked with bald eagles and golden eagles and a little bit of stellar sea eagles. There's nothing like a harpy. They are beyond powerful. I wish that we had more access to them in zoos and wildlife centers for people to be able to see and be inspired by them. Because again, when you're talking about conservation, we're in a digital age. People don't care about things they are not connected to. And if I say, hey, in some rainforest thousands of miles away, there's a bird that you should care about, and you should try to help preserve, who cares? So I hope this video will inspire some people who make decisions in the future to do some good with it, because harp eagles, we need our monsters. We need our legends. It's sad that during the Ice Age, which we're still coming out of, it's a few thousand years ago, we had truly epic animals like woolly mammoths and giant ground sloths. America had camels like Titanotilopus, a camel that was as tall as a giraffe. We had American lions that were as heavy as 4 African lions. We had these giants, as well as what we have now. We had both. Now the giants are gone, and we're left with the big guys. But there's still a few giants left. Like I think the Philippine eagle that we talked about earlier, and the Harp Eagle are among those giants. The Bataleur eagle of Africa. These are kind of almost mythic animals of the past. The California condor. We still have turkey vultures. Turkey vultures are kind of doing the same job right now. The California condors are leftover giants from the past that are still here. And I want to live in a world with monsters. I want to live in a world with giants, with near mythical animals. Harp Eagle is one of them. And again, a Harp Eagle isn't even a true eagle genetically, but I think the Harp Eagle is the most eagle of all eagles, and always worthy to learning about them, to seeing them, and to doing everything we can to preserve and help them. So I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit more about Harp Eagles, and I hope you'll go and do more research yourself. Unfortunately, if you go to research them online, you're going to find a lot of incorrect images. AI will just pick up random eagle images of different kinds, and it kind of messes things up. So be sure you're getting your information accurately. I am working on a mega video it's going to be several hours long, covering all the biggest eagles, true eagles, and eagles like Harp Eagles and stuff. I'm working on this right now, and it's going to take me several months still to get it done, because I'm going to be pulling in from recording at all different times. But it's going to be an epic one. So then you can learn more about like the Guiana crested eagle and the Papuan eagle. By the way, if any of you watching this have any access to photos or information on Papuan eagles, they are so hard to get any good photos of, and that's one I'm working on, and I need some help if anybody can help with that. But I hope you enjoyed this video. If you watched all the way to the end, type condor in the comments so I know you watched this to the end. If you can hit subscribe, very much helps me out. If you want to support me, I've got a link to my Patreon in the description. And I hope you keep coming back and enjoying these videos with me. And as always, happy hawking.